So most of the time, if you're looking for any sort of massage, medical practice sort of, foam roller ball, anything like that, everything you're going to find on Amazon and online is super hard, like lacrosse balls. You've got the foam rollers that have the knobs and all that kind of like mean stuff going on there. And that is really just the wrong way to go about trying to get muscles to recover. So it is less about trying to get, your elbow in there and just beat the heck out of the muscle, and you're really just trying to get it to relax, chill out, and go back to its normal resting potential, which is not stuck contracted. It's more of relaxed, it's ready to do stuff. So when you're going to try to massage or do some trigger point release, instead of using a lacrosse ball, you want to use like one of these balls, right? So these are child's tennis balls. So this is a 9 to 10-year-old kid's ball. It's kind of squishy, but it's firm enough. And this is a green dot ball, which has a little bit less squish, right? But it's definitely squishier than a tennis ball is. And these are the two that I use probably about 95% of the time. The only time that I ever have people use lacrosse balls or like full tennis balls for anything is if they're typically leaning up against the wall, because you can modify the force, you can modify body weight, all that kind of stuff. But if you're laying on a ball, if you're laying on one of these guys, it's a lot more comfortable than a lacrosse ball would be. But sometimes it's easier for you to lay on something just because it's a whole lot less work than trying to figure it. I got to stand up against the wall and do stuff. And so in that case, just add tons of cushion to the ball. So if you put a ball on the ground and lay on top of it, that's typically really, really hard. So if you've got a squishy ball, works out great. If you don't have a squishy ball and you're stuck with a lacrosse ball, it's super painful, right? You're contracting all your muscles because the pain is just so intense. So what you want to do is you want to modify the amount of force that's going through here. So you're trying to make the pressure less. So if you take a folded fluffy bath towel or a pillow and you put that on top of the ball, it makes it a lot less aggressive. If you take that same cushion, you put that on top of the floor and then put the ball on top of that, it's going to be able to sink in some, which will still make it a lot less intense, but it's going to be more intense than if you put the cushion on top of the ball, right? So that's a couple of different ways to do that. So when I first started doing all this trigger point release work, which is pretty much kind of what my practice is built on now, I would only have lacrosse balls because I didn't even know that these kids' tennis balls even existed. So what I would do is sometimes I've had people lay on the lacrosse ball on the floor. Well, I would take 2 or 3 different pillows, put those on the floor, put the ball on top of that, and then have the person lay on top. And that was the appropriate amount of force where, hey, I can feel it, but it's not killing me. So the idea is how long should you leave pressure on the ball before the sore spot goes away? Generally speaking, about 2 minutes or less. So if you're finding a sore spot and you're like, okay, that's pretty sore, but it's not terrible, right? You never want sharp stabbing, shooting, stinging, burning pain. You just want to be like, yeah, feels like a bruise. And within probably the first 20, 30 seconds, the bruise should already be feeling like the bruise is getting less intense. And within about 1 to 2 minutes, you want to feel like it's pretty close to being gone. And you want to kind of hang out until there's really no tenderness left. It just feels like there's a ball wherever the ball is. And then you move it to the next spot and you repeat the process. So 2 minutes is more of a ballpark estimation. It's not 120 seconds. But it's long enough to be like, I've spent a pretty decent amount of time here, and that is not feeling any better. It's probably too much pressure, or you're not relaxed. All right. So that's kind of how I end up doing this. So I don't really like to massage areas. I like to just sit on the sore spot, hold pressure, wait for it to go away. So if you've worked on your shoulder, you're working on your back, you're working on your butt, your hip, something like that, your hamstrings, calves, and you're just beating it to death with whatever it is, and it just basically is super painful the whole time, try a much less aggressive approach, and you might find that that is really kind of what you're looking for. So you can find all these things on Amazon. This is just a kid's ball. It's just an orange ball. This is a 60. That's kind of the compression of this. This is usually, I think, a 72, something like that, but it's basically, again, a different compression ball. Don't buy these crazy things, but it's also very difficult to find a lower density foam roller on Amazon. You can go to the store called Five Below. Sometimes they have a lower density foam roller, but you could always just buy the Amazon Basics $10 roll, and then if it's too aggressive, you can just put a folded fluffy bath towel on top of it, a pillow, something to make it more tolerable. So there's a lot of ways to modify the amount of pressure so that rather than feeling like every time you're doing this soft tissue work, instead of torturing yourself when you're done, you're like, man, that actually feels a lot looser, a lot better, that kind of thing. That's what you're looking for. And try to spend a decent amount of time, 10, 15 minutes at a time. And if you get to do it 2 or 3 times a day, that should get you kind of over the hump of, I've been dealing with this stuff forever. Sometimes you have to put enough time into it, but hopefully while you're doing all that, you can be watching TV or listening to a podcast. So you're not just sitting there in silence, just like, ow, this hurts. When's it going to feel better? All right. So keep up that good work, but be less aggressive with the work that you're doing. I think you're going to have a whole lot better success with it. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much.